1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Alderman Petrelli and Alderman Waters. I see Alderman Woodcott. I think we're just missing Alderman Waters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Eddie, would you like that composite with your great-grandfather in the General Assembly? Do you have a copy of that?
You mean, what do you mean, the picture or what?
Yeah, the photo composite that they did of the House that session.
I don't.
I have an electronic high-res version. I will send it to you. If you don't get it from me tomorrow, remind me.
Thank you.
We know Alderman Waters is just on the previous meeting. We're going to give him a minute. It's one thing when I know somebody's not going to be on here. It's another thing when I suspect it's technical issues, and I feel like we should wait for them. Okay, thank you. I believe Alderman Waters is joining us in just a second. Thank you, Tina. There we go. Tina, can you let us know when we're ready to go, please?
Floor is yours, sir. You're all ready.
Thank you so much. We appreciate everybody joining us for our August 25th, 2020 meeting of the Hendersonville Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We are via Zoom, as we have been for a couple months, and hope that we have people who can follow us along. If not here live, then certainly on YouTube later on. We're going to begin our meeting as we typically do, and that's with a prayer and a pledge. So please join me with a prayer, and then I'll stand the pledge, the flag right behind me. So, but let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together, and thank you for the opportunities to serve you. Thank you for the many wonderful gifts you provided us, and help us to use those to your work here and as we go away from here. Thank you for the people who protect us here and far away, and thank you for the people you provided to us to serve us. Please especially look upon folks that are suffering and the people who are dealing with the deaths of people from COVID-19. Continue to look after all those who are ill and help us to find community and help us to help. Please remind us to thank you and to look for the blessings that you provided, even in times of crisis and even in times of difficulty. We appreciate you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I'll entertain a motion to accept our agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Waters.
Second.
And a second from Alderman Edwards, I believe that was.
It was.
Okay. Wrestling with how my screen should be set up here. There we go. Okay. Apologize for this. So we have a motion, a second. I don't see anybody's blue hands. I don't see anybody's real hands. If I am missing something, please wave at me wildly right now. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
Unanimous.
That passes unanimously. Thank you, Kay. Next on our agenda is a presentation. Y'all, we've got a pretty phenomenal list here of employees that have been with us for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and 40 years of service for the city. So I want to read the proclamation and then I'm going to read some names. We appreciate those folks very much. Whereas the city appreciates these folks' commitment to the betterment of our city, I, Jamie Clary, Mayor of the City of Hendersonville, like to commend the following individuals for their dedication. That was a very short preamble because we have a lot of names and it's a wonderful thing to have this many names. For 5 years, Marcus Babbitt, Raymond Bolton, William Boyd, David Brigance, Daniel Irvin, Vicki Frost, Timothy Glenn, William Hart, Anthony Holliday, Sarah Locke, John Newberry, Caleb Paul, Corey Shelton, Matthew Sigmund, Sydney Simpson, Jenny Spaneth, Mason Stidham, and Greg Stroy. That's our 5-year folks. Our 10-year folks: Philip Zamasco, Christopher Williard, William Burkett. I believe William Burkett actually is known by Trace. Timothy Denning, Eric Freeman, Javier Freeman, Thomas Holman, Russell Judkins, and Betsy Mullins. Those are our 10-year people. 15 years: Jerry Frentress, Neil Harris, Sharon Kirker, Johnny Loveday, Johnny Lunger, David Osborne, Lauren Purdue, Stephanie Powers, Seneca Smith, Timothy Smith, and Debbie Trisdale. Our 20-year folks: Larry Allen, Troy Bishop, Brian Boyer, Nancy Bradley, Michael Brown, and Keith Bruce. Those are our 20-year employees. Our 25-year employee, Kevin Pasteur, that was our 25-year. Our 30-year, Lieutenant Terry Smith, our 35 years, Shelley Cleek and Tim Nicholson, and 40 years, Brenda Monroe. We appreciate y'all very, very much. They're getting proclamations and certificates from me. And when we have when we finally have some live meetings, we want to do something for those folks. And we have so many wonderful people that have been here for this long. We have no public hearing on the agenda. Next, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve our minutes from August 11th, 2020.
So move.
We have a motion from Alderman Waters,
Second.
a second from Alderman Cunningham. All those in favor of approving our minutes from August 11th, 2020, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. That passes unanimously. And next we have citizen comments. We have 2 people signed up. The first is Ty J, and let me read, the next one is Ricky Amin. Let me read the guidelines. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per individual, which time is not transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, not to aldermen, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with differing views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for office also will not be allowed. Ty, if you want to go ahead, I didn't give your address, so I'd appreciate if you could do that.
Hey,
You're
do
good.
I start my clock now or after I give my address?
As soon as you give your address, I'll start it.
Okay, 1019 Mansker Farms Boulevard in Mansker Farms subdivision. I'm starting my thing now. Thank you guys for all your work again. Thank you to Ward 3 members that texted back and forth with me on different things. Thank you to the planning department for working with me on the other board stuff. And just thank you to the city people in general. Thank you to Public Works to get the trash thing ironed out. But I'm here tonight to talk about the CA position. As you know, you guys are going to work through that tonight. So I took the liberty of going through some numbers and doing some research. As some of you know, my background, so I'll just give it again for reference. I'm 30 years in IT work, being director, manager, employee in various businesses such as manufacturing, warehousing, sales, distribution, insurance, life and health insurance. Been working all over the country, Salt Lake City, Birmingham, Houston, several years in Tampa, Florida, a year or 6 months or so in Virginia, and also my home state of Dayton, Ohio for a lot of it. Right now I'm working in finance, and also I did test out of all my calculus classes in college. And as of last year, July 2019, I have achieved an 850 on my credit score. So with that, that's the only experience I can offer you as far as numbers and finance for the numbers I'm about ready to give you. With the CA position, I've been doing research with some numbers, and first of all, I got on my list is the car. Now, I stated last year during the whole ramp up of do we need a car or not? And I stated we did. I wanted the CA of this type position to have a car. And a lot of you guys, for various reasons, hopefully it was just political, because if it was just not knowing, that would be another problem. But you guys are saying, oh, no car's involved. Well, a car is involved. A car's on the table now. So the car is needed. And I did, years ago, I did some studies with my car because people were talking to me about, why are you flying a lot? Why don't you drive? It's a lot cheaper. Well, I did a full study on my car, 300M. I bought brand new, had it for years, put everything on there, even car washes, parking expenses, everything. It came up to 33 or 39 cents a mile. I know government's like 55 or 58, but it's 39 cents a mile. I want Miss Davis to be driving around the city and driving around the state a lot. So the car is going to be in a monthly expense that you need to account for. The other thing was moving and packing. I did some research, and I priced out United from her place in Jackson up to here. 4-bedroom house, 2-story with packing at $12,000. Now I want her to have packing because I want her to hit the ground running. I don't want her to spend time dealing with packing. Let's see, I'm down to that. Okay, so 4 months is the housing rental. Okay, so $2,500 a month for that. And then 1 week in a hotel that we talked about that. Now, since we're on W-2, that's FICA is going to be $11,000 per year on $143,000. We got health insurance to talk about. So if she needs help packing, give her help packing, but it's more than just $143,000. Let's see. Also with taxes, I triple checked it. With the moving part of it, you're going to have to 1099 it. She's going to be responsible for putting on her taxes, The hotel expenses is going to be expensed out to you guys. No taxes involved there, so I'm done. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Next, we have Rick Yamin. Rick, can you give us your
Thanks,
address?
Tom.
I don't have that.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get it. 44 Carrington Road. My name is Rick Yaman, and first off, I want to thank the mayor and aldermen and women, as well as the interim city administrator, for your tireless work. Since this pandemic, I've watched most of the BOMA meetings, and I've watched many of the specially called meetings, and I see how hard y'all work, and I know that y'all are doing what you all think is best and right for the city of Hendersonville, and I appreciate that. My family appreciates that. I also want to speak out about the city administrator position as well. I watched the specially called meeting with Ms. Davis present to negotiate her salary and part of the benefits package. It seems to me that the committee in charge had done their homework regarding what is usual and customary in such an offer. My research has shown that the state of Tennessee ranks 26 out of 50 states in city administrator salaries. Therefore, her offered salary is comparable based on that, where we stand. Then after the specially called meeting, a couple days later, I read the Hendersonville Standard online report and article of the meeting, and I was absolutely just appalled at the negative comments in the section after the article. And I wanted to share and am compelled to say that I want to trust the majority of this mayor and board of aldermen that they have done the right thing and they've done what they feel is in the best interest of the city in Hendersonville. Not everyone in the city is against Ms. Davis or this newly created position. And I want both Ms. Davis and...
Oh, Tina, did we lose Rick?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, he dropped off.
Do you have any way to contact him?
I'll hit him up with email real quick.
Okay. Well, I want to pause and let him, and I've stopped his time. I want to let him finish because the next item on the agenda is consideration of city administrator. It'd really be difficult to ask him to come back in later on when we've already passed that agenda item. I feel like his comments are pertinent to what we're dealing with next. So why don't we try to pause here for just a second?
Mayor, I move for a 5-minute break.
Hold on one.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Tina, can you give us an update?
Yes, sir. I've emailed him. I'm waiting for a response.
Okay. So a motion and a second to take a 5-minute break. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of taking a 5-minute break, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore, Skidmore,
You're muted.
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Okay, I heard an aye.
I'm sorry, yeah, aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary,
Aye.
unanimous.
That passed unanimously. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Tina, can you put up something on the main screen to let people know that?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your help. Okay. Let me, why don't you go ahead and take down the sign that we've got there and thank you. Tina tried 2 ways to get a hold of Rick Yaman and was unsuccessful with both. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll give it just another couple seconds here and do our best to get everybody back together. Okay, so Rick Yaman is going to try to reconnect. I appreciate y'all's patience. Alderman Robertson, want to make sure that you're there. Alderman Woodcock, Alderman Hayes, same thing. I realize that you might be there and just not have your video on, but I should give you the opportunity. Super. Thank you. I just don't want to move forward if you haven't quite gotten back from break. There we go. We've got everybody back. Tina, do you see Rick? Okay. Okay. Rick, welcome back. I've got you at about 3:15 out of your 5 minutes. If you want to continue, go ahead. I'll start the timer once we can hear you again.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure where y'all stopped hearing me, but I just wanted to say that, you know, I watched the specially called meeting of that Miss Davis was in, and I felt like the committee had done its due diligence, and based on where we rank, the state of Tennessee ranks 26th out of 50 in states payment and benefits packages to city administrators. So I felt like the package being offered was usual, customary, and fair. After the meeting, a couple of days later, the Hendersonville Standard wrote an article online, and there were many, many comments, and very much most of them were extremely negative, and I was very taken back by that. And I felt compelled to come before this board and say that, you know, not everybody's against this position or Miss Davis. We have to trust the members that we elected to do the right thing for our city. And I thank you for your time in allowing me to speak on this matter.
Rick, thank you. I appreciate that. Next, we have consideration of a contract for a city administrator. Probably the best place to start here would be, we need a motion on the floor. Give me just a second. And then we should probably go back to Chris Taylor because we've received a couple things by email in the past 2 days. And I'd like for Chris to give you an update of where we are, just so we can all be on the same page there. So I'll entertain a motion to propose a contract for our city administrator.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Campbell
I'll second.
and a second from Alderman Brown. Chris, I think you're with us. Do you want to give us sort of a synopsis of where we are?
Sure. So over the last, well, I guess since yesterday, everyone should have gotten a employment agreement drafted by Mr. Bradley. We sent that out yesterday about lunchtime, I believe. As of basically that contract agreement was sent to Ms. Davis as well for her review. We found a couple of minor issues or typos or whatever you want to call it internally as well. So basically over the last 24 hours, we've had several different parties looking at that to make sure it was accurate, to make sure it was reasonable, and in turn, ultimately what our negotiation committee had come to an agreement with Mrs. Davis. You guys should have gotten the most recent version about an hour before this meeting started. I also put together a side-by-side comparison that should overlay the two drafts that you've gotten, and it's highlighted in red as to what the changes are in that. So you guys can easily see what the changes were from the draft yesterday to the draft today. I'll be happy to navigate that appropriately with the help of Mr. Bradley. I think we used a MTAS model of the contract agreement is what we based that off of. I tell you what, before we get into that, we had a special call general committee meeting last week. I do want to turn the floor over to Chairman Sprouse to kind of give a quick synopsis of the general committee's stance and how that meeting ended. But before we do that, considering the main topic of discussion throughout this has been the moving expenses in the interim housing, I would ask for Finance Director Manning to take the floor for just a second to provide some clarity as to any tax implication confusion over the last couple of days that we've kind of ironed out. I've already talked to Robert. He's agreed to come on here and kind of iron out some things and answer any questions, because that is a major part of basically the final item that we need to agree upon. So Robert, if you don't mind, the floor is yours.
Chris, thank you for that. Robert talked a little bit about that finance committee, and I should have mentioned that. I apologize for that. Robert?
Sure thing. Actually, Tajay has beaten me to the punch, but certainly appreciate his comments. I'll be brief and just want to make sure that I mentioned a clarification and correction from last week's, kind of put on the spot and went with the information I had at the time, and that I believe to be correct then. But since then, we've done some research. Ms. Davis has looked at it. We've looked at it, and turns out as we originally thought, the moving expenses are taxable as well as, so both moving expenses and the allowance would be considered taxable amount instead of splitting those and one being treated separately. So I know there's a little confusion initially, and just wanted to clarify that and make sure we were all on the same page and singing from the same songbook. And that's all I've got.
I appreciate that. Chris, anything else to update us?
Yes, sir. I do want to turn it over and give Mr. Sprouse, the chairman of the general committee, an opportunity to give a 30-second rundown of how that meeting ended last week. 30-second rundown, Alderman Sprouse.
Let me interrupt real quick. I should have made this clear. Alderman Campbell and Alderman Brown, y'all made the motion. Are we considering what the general committee came up with, or are we considering what Chris sent us a little while ago? What's your motion?
I would
Same.
think that we are considering what is in front of us contractually, what Chris has sent. I would agree.
Okay. Alderman Sprouse, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you for y'all's patience with me last week. I was at an interstate stop somewhere in Virginia in a parking lot. So appreciate y'all. We had lower coverage, had a beautiful view, terrible internet service, but we got Henry moved into school. What the general committee did was we went through, looked at some of the really just sort of a few points that had not been worked out yet. And I feel like that we came up with a pretty good compromise, both with the candidate and with the city. And what we've recommended is, and I think almost all of these points are in the most recent contract that Chris has presented to us. We recommended $135,000 in salary. Instead of going back and forth into things, and we appreciate Mrs. Davis for taking the lesser expensive option, $10,000 for moving expenses. Now, that we did leave this open in the recommendation of general committee to whatever staff determined to be the taxability, that if there was a tax implication for that, that we would consider increasing that amount to cover the tax implication.
Hey, Scott.
The other item was dealing with living expenses.
Alderman Sprouse, I think it's a good point to make. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think you misspoke during the salary. You may want to back. You said 135 is what the.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said. I'm looking at 143 is what I wrote down. I apologize.
Thank you, Chris.
That's what I got.
143 for salary, 10,000 for moving expenses, which we may adjust tonight based upon what the tax implications are. And we found that there was $8,000 for temporary living expenses. That was calculated at 4 months for 4 months at $2,000 a piece. The way I looked at that was when I made the motion in general committee was that we were told by MTAS that 3 to 4 months was standard. I considered that to be reasonable. I went automatically to the higher option of 4 months, recognizing that if we had, I was thinking we could either do, I was going in thinking 3 months, but if we were doing 3 months and there were tax implications, I thought, let's just go ahead and make it 4 months. No one has to worry about that. Because quite frankly, a successful candidate will be paid $143,000 during that time. That can cover living expenses, or at least the taxes on the living expenses. And there's not anyone in the city, much less anyone on the city payroll, who pays for living expenses with tax-free dollars. So as the compromise, I came forward, instead of worrying about 3 months of living expenses, which was what I went into the meeting thinking was a good number, instead of worrying about taxes, I made the motion, and the committee recommended 4 months at $2K per month, so a total of $8,000 for that. And then instead of going back and forth on lodging, the city has contracts for lodging. We can do that tax-free, and so we would treat it like we would any other city authorized trip, paying for 5 days of lodging, standard per diem, and mileage for those trips for someone to come up and do house hunting. So if there's anything that differs, from what the motion was that when it was placed forward, I'll be happy to offer that as an amendment. But if that was the intention of the people who placed the motion, that's what we have. Also, unless anybody else has anything they want to discuss about general committee, I have nothing else for a general committee report. So unless someone has a question or another issue they want to bring up, Mayor, this will be the general committee report for tonight.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman Strauss. Alderman Bolt.
Thank you, Chairman. I had a quick question for Robert Manning. When you said that it's taxable, is that going to be taxable relative to W-2 income, or is that going to be taxable from the standpoint of 1099, and that would be responsible for the employee to expense accordingly?
Well, it's ultimately, my understanding is it depends on the payment. And in terms of the contract, I believe is one lump sum. I could be incorrect, but yes, that we would be at the tax rate of the employee.
1099.
Right. But for the employees' deductions and everything, I'm just a little confused on. It would be 1099 on our end, but is your question about how the employee is going to handle it, or about how much?
No, I'm just trying to ascertain how that was going to be paid out. If it's paid out 1099, that's not our responsibility relative to taxes and all that kind of stuff.
Sorry, I misheard you. I was jumping back on. Sorry.
Okay, Arlene, Alderman Cunningham. So you're in agreement. It's 1099.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that, Alderman Bolt. Thank you for your help, Robert. Thank you for your help, Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Strauss.
Robert, what would that number have to be to make the final take home for the candidate to be $10,000?
Are we discussing which, well,
Moving expense. What would we have to cut for the net for the candidate to be $10,000 to cover the intended moving expenses?
$11,364.
$11,364.
Yeah.
All right, that was the intention, the motion and the discussion, the general committee, that if we had to do a taxable amount, if the amount we gave was taxable, that we would refer to y'all, and y'all found out. So I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable with that change. I'm comfortable with 143 salary, 11,364 pre-tax for moving, and then a flat rate 8K for 4 months of living expenses at $2,000 a month, recognizing that that is taxable, but going to 4 months instead of 3.
Since this has not been on the table earlier than this meeting, if the person who made the motion and the person who seconded the motion want to incorporate that into their motion, that is quite okay.
So can I speak, since it's technically, I guess, the negotiating report? What I do want to provide some clarity on, and I think that this is important, and maybe I'm just missing something, but I think what our negotiating committee had worked out with Ms. Davis that we felt was reasonable, as well as Gary Jekyll, was that $2,300 per month was kind of what was discussed and what we felt like was reasonable in terms of a interim housing allowance in Hendersonville. Not exactly sure what I'm missing in terms of the $2,000 per month. That's kind of been estimated at this point. But the $2,300 a month is what we've kind of talked about since day one with Mrs. Davis, that our negotiating committee thought that that was actually fair, considering the size house that she was looking for in Hendersonville. I have not heard anyone disagree with that statement over the last 3 weeks or so. So I do want to provide some clarity in terms of maybe the numbers we're starting with. That might be I mean, that right there is $300 per month difference. So I do want to provide some clarity in that regard. The other thing that I would recommend or prefer that we do at this point, before we hear 13 different opinions, is maybe hear from Miss Davis. If she would be open to kind of having the floor for a moment and talking through maybe a little bit of her thoughts or confusion or some clarity. Miss Davis, would you be open to that?
Yes.
Okay, hold on one second. I appreciate that. There's a couple things we have to do first. Let's go back to the main motion and one of the comments that was made by Alderman Sprouse just a minute ago. I believe Alderman Campbell and Alderman Brown made the motion earlier. Would y'all like to change your motion? If not, we can go through an amendment process to amend that motion. Either one is okay. So now entertain.
I would say we need to go through an amendment process, because the motion that I seconded was to bring the contract that was sent to us this afternoon forward.
Okay.
And so if we want to amend that, then that's fine.
Okay.
And I would agree with that.
Okay. Alderman Sprouse, do you want to make an amendment?
Well, okay, one of the things we have to consider is the most recent contract we were provided have blanks for these items. So really, it's really not anything to amend as much as it is to add. I'm prepared to make a motion based upon the numbers I presented and what came out of general committee with the tax adjustment that was just made based upon Robert's information. But I'd really like to have Mrs. Davis say what she would like to think, what she thinks, because why take a vote on an issue if she's going to say no? Now, her saying no does not mean I may change my amendment, because I'm feel like what we worked out in committee was pretty fair, and everyone seemed open to that. Found some middle places there, and so, but I do think that just as a point that maybe we should ask Mrs. Davis if this is good, so we don't waste our time on an amendment.
Okay.
If that requires a vote of the board, I make a motion to suspend rules to allow Mrs. Davis to address the numbers that were presented.
I'll second. We have a motion. Second came from Alderman Hayes, I believe. I want to clarify something right after this vote. So let's just do this. Without objection, we're going to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Davis to speak in just a second. The clarification I want to make is what we are doing as a board is we are voting on a contract or an agreement to offer her. Whether she replies to us tonight, doesn't matter. Whether she wants to comment right now, doesn't matter. We are making a decision on what we are going to offer her. So with that said, Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. Good to see you all this evening.
Good to
I
see you.
appreciate you all working through this. I'm so excited about coming to a resolution and an agreement. I think we're close to being there. I appreciate Alderman Strauss coming forth with the adjustment based on the taxable implication on this. And I do feel like I need a little more clarity as to what is being presented. What I heard was based on a pre-tax amount to reach 10,000 for the moving expenses, that the board is considering the $11,640. And then separately from that, a total of 8,000 for the housing assistance, which I believe Mr. Taylor reflected the initial discussion on that amount clearly to you all, that that was always spoke of at $2,300 a month. But I do want to make sure I'm clear about whatever the amount is agreed upon concerning the interim housing. Are we talking a pre-tax number? Because I think originally that's how we all got to this point of confusion as to what numbers we're talking about, whether they're pre-tax or after-tax. And so I'm not sure what the 8,000 or whatever the interim housing allowance would be. Are we talking about a pre-tax amount that would reach a 4-month housing allowance? So I guess I'm not clear about that.
Alderman Sprouse, you want to clarify what your
Yes,
intention?
I think we're an understanding on every point. Salaries 143, the 10K we're adjusting to $11,364, so that post-tax it would be 10,000. The $8,000 is pre-tax, and that's the number that I made the motion for, or when motion was made in general committee and general committee considered, because quite frankly, I was thinking that 3 months was more reasonable. When the issue of taxability came up, I recognized that every one of us pays for our lodging, our living expenses with post-tax money. None of us get the opportunity of doing that pre-tax, considering the fact that we will be paying the full salary during that time. I thought that a generous compromise was, instead of me saying 3 months when they came up with the idea of taxability, that we make that to 4 months at the flat rate. And that ends up with a higher number than if we did 3 months tax, if we did 3 months post-tax. So 4 months pre-tax would be more than 4 months pre-tax would be more than 3 months post-tax. So I just felt like that was a cleaner, fairer compromise.
Ms. Davis.
Okay. So the pre-tax based on 2,000 a month or $2,300 a month?
23 was the number. I know you originally asked for 23 was the number that you asked for, but the 2,000 was the number that came out of general.
Okay. Okay. Well.
And then instead of, the final point was, instead of worrying about how many trips and how much to pay per trip, to just do the pay for the lodging, straight up pay for the lodging for 5 days, and then cover the standard per diem and the standard mileage. So we aren't going to worry about how many trips and how long the trips are. 5 days lodging, we'll get you here, we'll get you back, we'll feed you.
Okay. So I guess I have not been notified that the housing allowance was reduced from 2,300 to 2,000. I was not aware of that. And so that has not been communicated to me. So I think at this point, if the board wants to give an offer, and then I just make a decision on the offer.
I'm sorry if there's any miscommunication or misunderstanding in what the motion was that came out of general committee. But I feel that that is fair, especially with going to 4 months instead of 3, providing covering the tax implications of the 10,000 moving expenses and making open-ended the lodging for you to come up to look for the house. I feel like that's fair and reasonable for everyone. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I do also have a question, and I feel like it seems like it may be a little nitpicky, but I think I've always believed that if we're clear and have good communication on the front end, this will certainly eliminate confusion on the back end. I know, just like the caller said earlier today, if everything's clear on the front end, I can come in the door, hit the ground running, and not worry about what the confusion has resulted to on the back end. And I'm not clear if maybe Mr. Manning could break down how he got to the $11,640 pre-tax, because I don't think I agree with that number either. So of course, these are different numbers that we've talked about during our negotiation discussions. So I apologize. I really hate to extend this meeting, but of course, I want to make sure I understand the numbers and know what I'm agreeing to.
Robert, you want to give a try to that?
Sure. So same kind of calculation that we talked about a little earlier, but it's really dependent upon, and I certainly don't want to get into specifics, but it's really dependent upon tax bracket that you're in. That's best estimate and best guess that I can give with pretty reasonable certainty of where you would fall. However, that ends up at 12%. Taking $10,000 divided by 0.88 would give you 11,363.64. Or yeah.
Right. Well, I think what could clear up the confusion, I did suggest this before with the negotiation committee, that because I don't necessarily agree with what that number is right now, that we just put a clause in the agreement that the city will pay the taxes on whatever the taxes would be for $10,000. So that then doesn't require us to try to come out with an exact number or know what that number is. That's my suggestion. I thought that would be something that will cut down on the confusion.
Thank you for that. Alderman Petrelli's had her hand up for a little bit. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. There were others in the queue before me, so I can wait. Thank you.
Alderman Bolt was the only one before you, and he's already spoken once. If you want me to go ahead, I'll go on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Alderman Edwards.
Robert, can we do that? If she said that if we pay taxes, aren't we? I mean, can we do that? But isn't she taxed on if we pay the taxes? I think I've had this issue I've faced before in my practice.
You are, but you can calculate it at a certain rate that it will, after she pays tax, it will have net her flat $10,000. I mean, if you calculate the payment correctly, after she pays tax on the payment, she will be walking away free and clear with $10,000 reimbursement.
So how would we could word that in the contract to say that she'd be guaranteed to take home, have a net of $10,000?
Right.
Okay.
However you would like to word it. But yes, that's how we would do it on our end, is pay her the additional amount. You wouldn't do where people go wrong is they tax $10,000 and pay that tax, but that's not the correct amount. It would still short you at that point.
Right. Well,
Sit up.
Miss Davis, if we could word it to say that, where it'd be you're a guaranteed 10,000 and you get 8,000 in temporary living expenses. I mean, before I vote on this, I'd like to know if you'd be willing to accept that.
Well, like I said, I appreciate your allowing me to speak. Like I said, I'm not quite clear on the interim housing. That would create an issue from my standpoint, because one, I was not privy to understanding that earlier on. I thought I took the effort that the committee expected us to do after the general committee, to work with Mr. Taylor and others to come up with some numbers, and that number was never provided to me. So I feel like I'm at a disadvantage, and I hate to put this out there like that, but that's where I am right now.
Russ, Alderman Edwards?
Okay. Well, I mean, this is kind of an awkward situation. It's kind of like negotiating a prenuptial agreement. We want you to come in with a good feeling, and we want you on our side. And I really hope we're not quibbling over $900 or $1,200. I hope if we vote for this, you would accept an $8,000 living expense, which I think is kind of generous. And I would hope you would just go ahead tonight and say you would accept that, so we're not making this offer, then you think about it and us coming back in 2 weeks and having the same discussion.
Right.
But I want you to come in with a good feeling. I want you to be on our side, and I want all of us to work together.
Oh, yes, I think that's no doubt. Always be on your side, always work with you. But I just, like I said, it's hard to really say anything at this point, because that's not the calculation I was basing everything on, and part of our discussions. But what we could do, if the board is clear about what you want to offer, and then I guess I have given an answer, but I would like an opportunity to now think on that, because I had not had that opportunity.
Alderman Edwards, anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate that. Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to use the highest tax bracket and be done with it. We're talking about a few $100 versus trying to come back and recalculate 2 or 3 times down the road, or to use, if she's willing to provide it, her taxable rate for 2019 and just use that rate. I think that would be an easy solution to such a small amount of money. And then second, I think I'll agree with Ms. Davis and say it's pretty unfair to make her be on the spot tonight and accept an offer. I believe we need a vote up and down and send it to her, and she either accepts it or rejects it.
Alderman Woodcock, thank you. Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Cunningham, you're
Okay.
muted. There we go. There you go.
Figured that out. Ms. Davis, can I ask Ms. Davis a question?
Sure.
Okay, Ms. Davis, what kind of calculation did you have in mind for the interim housing?
I was calculating 2,300
For
at
4
12
months?
which is $9,200.
Okay, so we're $1,200 difference at this point. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Net.
Exactly. And then do you feel that the 12% tax rate for the $10,000 is fair and equitable?
No, I don't think that's correct.
Okay, what would be a number that you would be looking at?
24%.
24%. Robert, if you could do the 24%, what would that come out to be? Because we're kind of guessing at the tax.
13,000.
How much?
13,158. I rather than guess, I mean, I think it would just be, I mean, we can give estimates at each range, but I think it would just be best to probably decide, what that bracket is. And I could just be crazy.
And just not put a number to it?
I don't want to say that if someone wants to on the board, but that's what I'm thinking is to state the intent. But I don't know if the board wants to go that route or not, but
And I believe that's what Alderman Sprouse had suggested, that we just say the 10,000 and plus whatever tax implication that would create, that we would, be able to reimburse at that point in time when we knew the exact number. Is that right?
Right. It's not my place. I just was saying.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to get down to the nitty gritty. I mean, we're pennies away from where we need to be. And we're working together and as a board and with Ms. Davis. So just want to get the deal done. Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham,
all I
thank
have.
you.
Thank you.
Alderman Robertson.
I have a question on some of the terms of the contract. So I don't know if this question is for Mr. Bradley or Chris, or maybe Chairman Sprouse that the general committee discussed. What is the definition of temporary housing expenses? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer to that specifically. I don't know
John, can you answer that?
Yeah, there's no definition. This is what she asked for as being the amount she needed for temporary housing. She estimated at $2,300 a month. I assume that was for rent and expenses such as that. There was an earlier document that talked about food and other things, but we all agree that that was not properly a part of the housing allowance. That's my recollection. The negotiations from her point had always used $2,300 per month. From the city's side, we always offered a lump sum with respect to any kind of temporary housing or relocation expenses. And that's sort of where the general committee came in. They had a one lump sum for moving and one lump sum for relocation and or temporary housing. But what we understood it to be would be the cost of her having a place to live with her family in Hendersonville until such time as she could get permanent housing. And of course, none of us know how long that may or may not be. This is just all a projection that we're making. And that's where we can talk 3 months or 4 months and put, 3 months at $2,300 is less money than 4 months at $2,000. So it's, there are a lot of different ways you can look at it.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. If Ms. Davis purchased a house a month after beginning employment with the city, how would that affect the temporary housing expense?
It would not. It would have already been paid.
So that's in a lump sum, regardless of when she purchases a home in Hendersonville or wherever.
Yes, sir. And that's the same is true for her moving expenses. This is a lump sum allowance that's been made, and this is what she gets. And if she can move for less money, so I guess she would have the difference. If she felt like it's going to take more money than this, and that's why I guess we're sort of in the discussion we're in now.
Yeah, and Chris, is this a typical
Alderman Robertson, back up just about 10 seconds. You froze there for a second.
For CAs? Hello?
Can you repeat your question? You froze up there for just a second, Alderman Robertson.
Yeah, I've got a bad internet connection, I guess. But Chris, is this a typical expense that cities pay, this temporary housing in a lump sum?
To our best knowledge, it is, and that's what Mr. Jekyll has helped advise our negotiating committee, that this is a typical expense, and that's what he was the one that kind of said, per all his research and all his local contacts in that profession, that 3 to 4 months is pretty typical, or pretty reasonable, I suppose.
And also on section 11, Chris, I have a question. Is this typical that a benefit that we provide to new employees coming in is automatically give them up to 6 weeks or whatever? And I'm talking about mainly department heads, not regular employees, but department heads. Is this a typical practice that we do in Hendersonville?
The paid time off, where we basically lump summed her vacation and sick time together, is something that I don't think we typically do with any employee. However, with this particular type of position, we felt that would be easier, more reasonable. I can tell you, if you want to break down the 6 weeks, that is pretty standard to what most, maybe not brand new employees would get, but that's a middle of the road, because if you split that up, that would be 3 weeks of vacation, 3 weeks of sick time, which you get 3 weeks of vacation once you've been here 5 years, 6 years maybe. So combine that together. We joke that we really don't care if she's at the beach with her family or she's at home sick in bed. We're still going to pay her 8 hours. So long story short, we decided to lump sum that together. Holidays would be paid separately, but paid time off or PTO It's kind of a hybrid situation. That's a more progressive way to think about time off that we felt was appropriate with Ms. Davis in this position.
Okay, and I've got one last question. I understand this contract was probably a template that MTAS provided the city. And under section 1, under duties, John, can you explain to me what the principle of non-interference is?
Yes, this was what was recommended by MTAS. This was recommended by MTAS. And to me, when I read that, I just assumed that it meant that the board would not on a regular basis be interfering with the day-to-day operations of the city, that the board collectively would act in the way they felt was appropriate to manage the city's business. But it's to sort of separate the board as a legislative body and the city administrator as the administrator of the city, so that you don't have, you know, a problem where the city administrator is answering to all the individual members of the board on a regular basis. That doesn't mean you don't communicate. The agreement spells out that there's to be communication back and forth between the mayor and all the aldermen and the city administrator to whatever extent necessary. So if you don't like the language non-interference, we might, I suppose, to change that. But that was how I interpreted that. But it was to give the city administrator a chance to do her job and then be judged based on the way she was allowed to do her job. And I think that's sort of the whole idea of that language in the contract, Mr. Robertson.
No, I agree 100% in the separation of powers. So I understand that principle. I guess my question, this principle would not prohibit board members from contacting department heads, would it?
It wouldn't have anything at all to do. It would not be involved in the relationship between the board and department heads. This contract is just between the board and the city administrator.
Okay, and we don't have any existing policies or practices that's in conflict with that principle now, do we? That you're aware of?
That board members can't talk to department heads?
No, I'm sorry. The principle of non-interference. Do we have any policies or ordinances or practices that conflict with that?
No, I don't think we do. We don't have any position that would apply to, except for the city. I guess we've got it with the interim city administrator. I guess you could say that it could apply to the interim city administrator as long as he's in office. But we don't have a contract with him that says that. So technically right now that does not exist with anyone in the city that I'm aware of.
Thank you. And now a question for Ms. Davis. Are you requesting that your contract require or include the living expenses in pre-tax terms?
Let me rephrase what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to give an amount that nets $9,200. So
that's pre-tax.
So whatever pre-tax. No, that's after tax. So it should net $9,200.
So you want the city to pay the tax on your interim living expenses?
Yes, similar to the moving expenses.
Yeah, and Chairman Sprouse, your general committee did not recommend that, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
That the living expenses be $8,000 or $9,000, what Ms. Davis is requesting after tax, that she would actually see that amount.
Yeah, my intention was going into the committee that we were looking at 3 months versus 4 months. And I thought if we did 4 months without paying the taxes, that was a better deal than paying 3 months and paying the taxes.
Yeah, I agree with that thinking. So I support the general committee's recommendation on that portion of the package. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. A question for Carmen, if I can ask, or I'm not sure this came from you 100%. Where did the $2,300 figure come from?
It came from the difference of the cost of living currently, the difference between Clinton, Mississippi, where I currently reside, to Hendersonville. So it creates a 30% increase to the housing that I'm currently paying, comparable to what it would be in Hendersonville.
Okay. So your assumption is that you're going to need 3 to 4 months. You'll be paying both ends, possibly up here and down there. I thought you were leasing down there, and your leaser said that he would let you out of the lease.
Yes, no, it's not incorporating the current lease here. What it's doing is taking what my current cost is in Clinton, Mississippi, and factoring in a 30% increase when I go to Hendersonville.
Okay.
So it wasn't the pulling out a hat number. It was based on what my existing cost is and trying to incorporate the difference in cost for housing there.
All right.
Alderman Brown, anything else?
I don't think I'd like to yield my floor to Mr. Sprouse because he said earlier he wanted to make an amendment.
Okay.
And so I'll yield my floor if he wants to do that.
So happens he's the next person in the queue. Alderman Sprouse.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I didn't realize I was yielding the floor when I wanted to ask Mrs. Davis the question, but I do appreciate all the discussion and the questions that the other members of the board asked. Before I make my amendment, I want to talk a little bit about process. This is a horrible, nasty, terrible process for anyone who's hiring or anyone who is being hired. But the reality of it is that we are a public body. So when someone says it doesn't look like any of this has been discussed before, it's because it hasn't. Staff can talk about it. Staff can talk to us one-on-one. But when a general committee meets to discuss it, that's the first time we're deliberating. When the board meets to discuss it, that's the first time we're deliberating. And it needs to be that way. When we have the ability for one person to negotiate and then come back and give a deal and we vote up or down, that's the issue. But if we do have questions and we have concerns, this is the result. So I appreciate everyone's patience with that. Couple of things to point out is if we do want to talk about differences in cost of living is the state of Mississippi has a personal income tax, which Tennessee does not. There's some benefit there. And Mrs. Davis, like I said in general committee, you were the overwhelming choice by this board. It is my intention in general committee and my intention tonight for us to be able to work out what makes you an employee for the city of Hendersonville, and that you use your considerations and your negotiation skills for the benefit of the citizens of Hendersonville. But we also have that accountability as well as elected officials. And I feel like that we were pretty clear in general committee that what we were coming up with, that we were going to be open to the moving expenses covering what the tax would be for those moving expenses if we found out they were taxable. I know my intention, we said very clearly it was $2,000, and part of my math is $2,000 for 4 months is $8,000. If I had looked at my original 3 months that I was considering and your $2,300 that you were asking for, that was $6,900. So I just felt like that if we could just make it cleaner, get a number that was a little bit lower per month, but add a higher month that gives you a higher number overall, even if you have to pay taxes on that, you're going to be in a pretty good situation. We don't have to worry about the accounting and tracking. It's a lump sum. If you find housing in 2 months, that's fine. In fact, I want you to be able to find housing in 2 months. I want you to find a good deal on moving because you're going to help put together a budget for almost $60 million. And so I hope that the administration skills are there in that. So what I'm looking to do, we're really getting to the point where we really are talking about a few $1,000s here or there. But I think that we need to talk about what the process is, what came out of the committee, what we are all dealing with in good faith, and that we bring something in that can be acceptable, not just to this board, but by the people of Hendersonville, those who are ultimately paying these bills, and even the other city employees. This is a unique position within the city. And so there are some differences, but at the end of the day, this is a city employee, and we always want to try to have parity for our employees. And that's when I start talking about no one else having to worry about paying for living expenses tax-free. We know where the city of Hendersonville is. Anyone who applied to work for the city of Hendersonville knows where the city of Hendersonville is. And that needs to be a consideration when someone applies for the job in the city of Hendersonville. So if a motion is required, and if it is, I'll go ahead and make one, which was based upon the recommendation of the general committee, which is a salary of $143,000, which will be eligible for any COLA if a COLA is granted during this budget year. So that's something right there where we can look for that number going up. I am fine with having open-ended language that says moving expenses, whatever number is required to make the net to the applicant, to the employee at that time, to be $10,000. Robert, I trust you to know what that number is. Mrs. Davis, I trust you to work with Robert to be able to come up with that number. A flat fee of living expenses, doesn't matter if you need it for a month or 2 months or 6 months, a flat fee of $8,000, which covers 4 months at $2,000. And then the 5 days lodging that the city would schedule and arrange, and the standard per diem and mileage for city employees while you are using that lodging. My idea is let's just make it as clean as possible. We don't have to worry about future calculations and what's going on. We are so close, but I think that that's something that's fair and that we can represent all parties involved.
We have a motion for an amendment
I'll second that motion.
and a second from Alderman Edwards. Alderman Bolt.
Well, I was going to make an amendment to the main motion, but now there's an amendment on the floor.
You can make an amendment to the amendment if you wish.
Sorry, but I think I will. I'm getting uncomfortable with the additional, the add-ons relative to the tax. I felt like the general has done a good job of negotiating. I think that the three-person committee, including you, Mayor, have done a very good job of communicating that, and I'd rather just make it cleaner and be done with it in some version of a compromise. And we are splitting hairs, but it's also a little bit principled. So as opposed to us sitting around figuring out what the net is, which falls on Robert, I'd rather just do a flat maximum of 20,000. And then, you know, she can figure out the withholding, or Robert can figure it out with her and just be done with it.
Are you saying 20,000? Are you saying 20,000 between the two expenses of moving and temporary housing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion, a second. Let's speak just specifically on this amendment, 20,000 versus the moving and temporary housing expenses. Let's speak specifically on that. But nobody is, I don't see, Alderman Sprouse.
Would the amendment also include the lodging and the travel expenses for those 5 days? Is it just a straight 20,000 on everything?
No, I believe those have always been dealt with separately. Is that correct?
Yes.
In my opinion, the only thing he's changing, Alderman Sprouse, in your amendment are just those two items. Everything else you put out there would remain.
Okay, I will withdraw my motion just so we don't have to worry about voting multiple times.
Let me stop you. Alderman Edwards, do you want to withdraw your second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me back up just a second. Alderman Bolt, I'm going to come back to you in just a second to make sure that you're okay withdrawing your amendment to the amendment, but I'm going to go back to Alderman Sprouse right now.
I have withdrawn my amendment.
Okay, so Alderman Bolt, your amendment is no longer on the floor since the amendment that is attached to is no longer on the floor. Alderman Sprouse.
If Mr. Bolt would like to make his motion, I'm very happy. That's why I withdrew mine, so he could make his.
Okay.
Glad to second that.
So, Alderman Bolt, do you want to make your amendment, your motion for your amendment?
Yeah, I appreciate you keeping track of all this. I would like to make a motion that we make it just a flat $20,000 gross.
Okay.
And be done with it.
For moving and relocation expenses.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Alderman Edwards, I believe you seconded it.
Okay. I think Alderman Campbell seconded it, didn't he?
I did.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. What this amendment does is it takes the document that Chris sent to us this afternoon and it changes moving and temporary housing expenses. That's where we are right now. Any discussion on that item? Alderman Hayes, specific to moving and relocation.
Yes, just reminded that during the general committee meeting, we agreed on the 10 and the 8, it was 18. Then there was conversation about taxes, and I know the amount of $20,000 came out in discussion, and we said we may try to make up that difference up to $20,000, including taxes. So I remember that part of the meeting, and that's why I support this $20,000. That's total. However much taxes you pay, Ms. Davis, that's what you'll pay out of that, out of the 20,000.
Alderman Hayes, thank you. We've got nobody in the queue. All those in favor of the amendment, which would change moving and temporary housing expenses to a flat amount of $20,000, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson. Was that an aye?
Aye.
Skidmore,
I think that's more money. No.
Sprouse,
Aye.
It's less.
Waters,
I think it's more.
Waters,
Alderman Waters, we can't hear you.
Oh, you, okay. No.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary,
No.
10 ayes, 3 nays.
That passes. We're back on the main motion. Alderman Sprouse, I think you might want to clarify some of the items you had before, maybe not.
I'll be happy to. The only thing that changed were the second and the third point. So the first point remains at 143,000 for salary eligible for COLA if one is granted this budget year. The second and the third are now 1 point, which is flat rate 20,000 gross payment for moving and living expenses. The fourth point remains unchanged, which is 5 days lodging arranged by the city, standard per diem and mileage for employees for those trips to come up for house hunting.
Does anything else change? I'm looking at the spreadsheet that Chris provided. Does anything else change? Well, it'd be up to you if you want to change anything. It'd be up to amendment to change anything else.
I'm fine with everything else in the document Chris presented.
Okay, Alderman Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. Carmen, one more question for you. This one probably not too hard. You think 48 hours is sufficient time to get talk to your husband and about this and get back to us?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've got an amended employee agreement on the floor. We have nobody else wishing to speak. So those in favor of this agreement, please signify by saying
Attorney.
aye. Oh,
Bradley.
Alderman, or excuse me, our city attorney, John Bradley.
Yes, I just wanted to make clear that the last copy of the agreement that was sent out today has been agreed to by both parties. It's been agreed to by Ms. Davis and her attorney. The only issue that was left was that blank spot in Section 8 about the housing and about the temporary housing and the relocation and moving expenses. So you have the contract before you that you're asking the mayor to sign with that $20,000 figure put in that blank. Everything else is exactly as you have it before you tonight. Thank you.
All those in favor of offering this contract, this agreement, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Mayor, did we have a second on that motion?
I believe so. I think the original motion was Pat Campbell and, I'm sorry, Alderman Campbell and Alderman Brown.
Yes.
That Sprouse just made?
Sprouse hasn't made a motion. I'm sorry, Alderman Sprouse has not made a motion. We've adopted an amendment and we're back on the main motion, except Alderman Waters.
Let's clarify what the main motion is, Mayor. There's been so much amendments going on.
Okay, so the most recent email you got from Chris Taylor.
No, I didn't get one.
Okay,
I don't know what he's talking about, the new contract, but that's okay. Go ahead.
okay. The most recent item that he sent us had an attachment for an updated employee agreement. We have filled in a couple blanks on that, and we have changed 2 items. The 2 items are that we have changed the moved and relocation expenses and the temporary housing. Instead of those being 2 separate items, that's now 1 item at $20,000 because we passed an amendment to do that.
Is that $20,000 gross, a net, what?
That is, that's what we're gonna pay her, then she's responsible for taxes after that.
Oh, she is, okay.
Yes, yes.
That's the only changes?
That's the only change compared to what Chris Taylor sent to us this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
And I appreciate that. So Kay, am I correct that we are back on the main motion? Did I screw up? Okay, I appreciate that. All those in favor of the employee agreement as amended, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no.
Woodcock,
No.
Waters,
No.
Sprouse,
Yes.
Skidmore,
No.
Robertson,
Yes.
Petrelli,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Kay.
Edwards,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bolt,
Yes.
Clary,
No.
nine ayes, 4 nays.
Okay, that passes 9-4. Ms. Davis, I look forward to hearing back from you. And as soon as I do, I'll communicate with the rest of the board and we'll go on from there. I appreciate your time joining us tonight too.
I appreciate you all's time and I look forward to talking to you in a couple of days.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you so much.
Bye,
Next-
Carmen.
Bye-bye.
Next on our agenda is our Finance Committee, Chairman Cunningham.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Oh, let me get my notes in. Okay, we had our Finance Committee tonight, and we had several different ordinances and resolutions that we discussed. Ordinance 2020-25, ordinance amending budget ordinance 2020-20, accepting and appropriating expenditures and revenues awarded through an Assistance of Firefighters Grant, AFG. That was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2020-27, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a donation in the amount of $400 from Morris Orthodontics. That was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2020-28, an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2020-20 by accepting and appropriating sponsorship funds. That was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2020-29, ordinance to authorize amendment to budget ordinance 2020-20 and appropriating funds from the general fund reserves. That was recommended unanimously. That was for the Anderson Park project. $288,000 was going to supplemental paving, but we revised that slightly for it to go into a fund specific for improvements in the Anderson Park area. And Robert's going to create that special fund for that special account for that. Ordinance 2020-30, ordinance to authorize amendment to budget ordinance 2020-20 and appropriation performance bond funds from the general fund reserve account. The performance bonds for site improvements in Indian Lake Village Phase 1, total of $27,195. That was a bond that was recovered from the developer. That was some money that was left over. Ordinance 2020-31, ordinance to authorize the amendment to budget ordinance 2020-20 to appropriate monies into a new account for transportation-related improvements to Drake's Creek, approximately $650,000. And that is going to go to several different projects: the Durham Farm Roundabout, the new Shackle Island at Drake's Creek intersection, Long Hollow and Long Hollow Drake's Creek intersection. And that was recommended unanimously at all altogether. Just wanted to note that none of these funds are coming from our regular general fund. We had already accounted for all those funds. Under resolutions, we had resolution 2020-48, a resolution to declare equipment owned by the city to be surplus property and directing disposal of the same. That was recommended unanimously. We discussed the issuance of some debt service, which would be most likely a 12-year capital outlay note. We had a list of items that we discussed, but that item is due to be changed, probably going to go through our capital projects committee and also our public works committee. And then we had report on our tax return, on our sales tax. We have some excellent news. Sales tax collections for July, $1,367,809, and that is a increase of 15.54%, or based on what we had projected originally, of $183,933. And then we had our report on hotel motel tax. Not such a good picture, but getting better, because that fund was hit really hard with the pandemic. Our collections for the month of July, $16,496 compared to $35,862 last year. But with the, with things that are easing, our hotel motel tax is steadily increasing month over month. We started off with a real bad month in April of only $4,605. Now we're up to $16,400. So that is improving month over month. And that was the end of my report. Thank you.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Chairman Brown, Public Safety Committee.
There is no report, Mayor. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Chairman Skidmore, Public Works Committee.
Yes, thank you very much. We had a meeting this evening. Let me try to get myself situated here. I apologize. This chair, unfortunately, kind of sinks on me, and during the evening, I start going down and down and down. So I apologize. You can barely see my head, but it's a very good chair to sit. We did have I'm going to cut to the highlights that we did this evening, and one thing is probably the most critical thing that that we attacked tonight. We're going to bring it to you in 2 weeks at our next meeting, and that is the stormwater drainage ordinance. We're finalizing it. We're massaging a little bit and making sure that we do the right things with the state as well as the city. And once that gets done, it'll be a little more organized, and you'll be able to, the thing that we need to do collectively as a city and as a board is we've got to decide our appeals committee on how we want to set it up. And we've got to talk to everybody on that. That's most critical. I think even Alderman Campbell was the one that said instead of making a final choice, we'll just leave it up to the whole board. And I thought that was a good idea. And I think Alderman Roberson put it in the ordinance to bring it up, and I agreed with it, and we voted unanimously on it. So we're coming with that next in 2 weeks. We also have several ordinances that are coming into finance at their next meeting, as well as to the board. There are about 3, but there's just so many. They're all small ones though. They're all like, for example, the ordinance 2020-31 is an ordinance to authorize an amendment to the budget, which is very little money. I think that'll pass unanimously. Monies for a new account for transportation related to improvements to Drakes Creek Road. I think that's absolutely necessary for our city. And then we have one more up here, an ordinance appropriating performance surety funds from Indian Lake Village Phase 1, but we'll be able to discuss that if it needs discussion to the board. The other thing is we had our monthly trash update. I wish that we were able to show you the graph that which I really appreciate the Public Works Director coming through and showing us this evening. We're back on track now. I'm not saying we're hitting every house because that'll never happen, but we're down to several homes with not several homes, but a few homes that the garbage people have missed. But it seems like they've got it going. But the whole board as a whole, we've all said that before. So let's keep our fingers crossed that they're going to do it. But I have a feeling they're working out their situation they had with the COVID virus. They brought people in and they're continuing to do that. And they're picking up the bottom line for every alderman up here is they're picking up trash. Now they are missing some trash. Although we hit every point on our book tonight for the first time this year, we did not get to Alderman Waters, and I know that he has a question for me. So if everybody could be patient this evening with both Jim and I, and Jim, I'll entertain, if it's okay with the mayor who's running the meeting, if you want to talk to me about it or talk to us, we're ready to listen to it right now.
Jim, Alderman Waters, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Yes, I want to share it with the board and it's about trash pickup. Is Marshall here? I like to see that graph that you mentioned. If he's here, I like to see it.
Let me ask you this. Marshall, can you put it up, or Tina, can you help us with that? Do we still have that available? There we go.
Okay, thank you. So we look at what's that, 40? We're looking at August the 24th. That's 40, right? Am I looking at it right?
Yes, yes. You're seeing one day where there was 40, where there were 40.
Okay. That's that one week, right?
Marshall, you want to explain that?
It's broken out per day.
That's per one day.
Yeah, there's 30. It is 38. Yeah, on August 24th, there were 38.
38 misses.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Over here where I live in Ward 6, 28 of those are mine, okay? This is something that's I've got to say it, and I hope I say it in a polite way, but this trash pickup is getting to a point where when my phone rings, I know what it is. It's they didn't pick it up. They didn't pick it up. So I think I'm beginning to understand how the trash vendor operates. Quote, we will make changes as we go. I think that's what they think. Apparently the contract means nothing, and I do mean nothing. I read it again today to be sure. And let me just read part of it if you don't mind. Waste Pro understands the importance of servicing elderly and handicapped residents requiring backdoor service. Backdoor service. I read it again twice, and I cannot find anywhere in this contract where it says, and I'll quote from a little pamphlet that they handed out yesterday, "Your home was not serviced today for one of the following reasons. Number 4, container back door not visible from driveway side of home." Did y'all hear that? It's not visible. Now, Marshall, I sent you a memo and you responded, and I appreciate it. And you said, item 4 is listed to help the provider quickly and safely locate trash containers. There have been some situations where residents have containers behind garages, pool houses, and even enclosed areas. And this provision was simply to allow the provider to walk down the driveway side of the home and visibly see the container back door. This has been in effect since the fall of last year. The fall of last year. Will someone please explain to me why after 4 misses, 4 houses, Friday, this past Friday, in my ward, Ward 6, this driver came up and he handed this lady this pamphlet, which I just read. It just blew my mind. That's the first she's ever seen it. She gave it to me. I've never seen it. I didn't even know I didn't know we had that many. Number 4, container back door not visible from driveway side of home. If it's not visible, it will not be picked up. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing? Well, show me in the contract where it says that, please. Mr. Chairman, or the director, either one. Again, now I am getting passionate about this trash. We've got to do something, ladies and gentlemen. These people are getting upset.
Alderman Waters, maybe the best thing we can do is maybe you and Marshall and Chairman Skidmore get together the next couple days and maybe even schedule a special Public Works Committee meeting.
Let me finish, Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead.
Again, they have made the rules as they go. And then they come up and try to blame the homeowners, handing them a piece of paper. This is why we didn't get your trash last week, ma'am, 2 weeks ago. It's pathetic. Now, I'm crying on your shoulder. We've got to do something with Waste Pro. Waste Pro is a good company. I don't have anything against them. But doggone it, I am sick and tired of every week. Now, my cohort in Ward 6, he didn't have any calls. Maybe I need to give them his number. But folks, listen to me. Let's do something about this trash, please. Thank you, Alderman Skidmore, for giving me a few minutes here, and thank you, Mayor. You're back.
Appreciate it. Alderman Skidmore, do you want to respond? It really wasn't a question, but go ahead.
Just briefly, because let me tell you this, and you all know this because almost every one of us on the board, I have spoken to in depth on this. I empathize and I sympathize with everyone in this city, including you guys, as well as especially the taxpayers. This has been one that has really, my position is real simple. This is the kind of person I am. I don't try to cast blame on people, or if it's the garbage company or if it's not. I've been placed in a place of responsibility, which I enjoy, the chairmanship. And I look for things when something's wrong. I don't say, well, it's so-and-so's problem, or it's our problem, or it's your problem, or anything like that. I look for ways to solve the issue. And then if it doesn't get solved to this board's satisfaction, or maybe it definitely does not get solved to the city of Hendersonville, the people's satisfaction, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise hell about it. And you all know me well enough to know that. And number two, you know, I'm going to be calling for somebody's head about it. Now, that's the only time that I'll go after somebody, when I don't feel they've done their job. You know, that what we've had with that the garbage company is, yes, it was horrible there at that one time when nearly all the aldermen were out getting garbage, including myself, were out there, you know, trying to make things right. That's my goal, is to make things right. But if they don't do that, you know, then we need to all collectively sit down together and figure out what we're going to do, together, and try to resolve this issue. Because no single person I've ever known dealing with the garbage contract has ever done it. We have to do it together, and we have to be stern about it. So, you know, in the coming months, if it, you know, it's been getting a little better, but there still have been misses. But we have to remember that our last garbage folks, and I'm not defending anybody, I'm just going to try to kind of remember how bad that it was with them sometimes too. But they would steer the course and they would get it back. I'm hoping these folks are going to do the same thing. I don't know whether they will or they won't. I hope so, because that's the one that was chosen. So all I can tell you is the graphs don't lie. You know, they kind of tell us where the garbage is in the city as a whole. Maybe not in Ward 6 or maybe not in Ward 1, but as a collective group, that those graphs tell us what's going on. And this past week, I think I had 2 calls. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to your comment?
Let's keep it a question about the report, though. Okay.
But that's it. That's it. It's just, you know, I want everybody to start thinking where we, you know, where we've got to go with this. If no one is satisfied, then we're going to have to take the issue by the horns.
Amen.
We're really going to have to talk serious about it.
Chairman, can I make a comment?
Oh, hold on 1 second. Let's go to Alderman Waters, then we'll come back to you, Marshall. But let's keep it about this report here. Alderman Waters, go ahead.
I just want to add, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Skidmore. I'm not bad mouthing Waste Pro. Don't get me wrong. I am upset. I am upset because they got these misses this weekend. They missed them, and they wind up saying, "Here's why we missed them. Here's the paper." And it says, "Contain a back door not visible from driveway side." Why can't they go to the back door and look? That's what I'm hearing. And these people are getting upset. I'm getting upset. And I think you're right. You know, 38 misses in one day, maybe that's not very many for the city, because this is a big city, and 38 may not be many. Maybe I only got 12 out of that 38, but it's every week. And if you want to call a special meeting with Waste Pro, I'm all for it.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to take up your time. Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate that. Marshall, can you help address this, or something we want to do another time?
Yeah, the 2 things I just want to point out real fast. Waste Pro, they're following the terms of the contract. We spelled out what those terms were several months ago, and they're complying with that. What we have found, it's an ongoing process to educate the city on what those rules are, and we do our best. Staff every day, as people call in, we go over what those rules are and where their trash can be, where it can't be. You know, what size container they can have. We try to do that to the best we can to make sure that people understand, the best way to get the trash picked up.
Well, we're not doing our job, Marshall. We're not doing our job.
I appreciate that, Marshall. Thank you, Alderman Waters. Alderman Campbell, do you have a question for Chairman Skidmore?
Oh, I was just going to ask that Marshall answer that question about they are following the contract, and that door hanger was approved by the city. And you're correct that we have people that for 20 years had the trash in one location, and now we have a new contract and they have to move their can somewhere else to accommodate the contract. And it is a process of learning the new contract for everyone involved. So yes,
Chairman Campbell,
thank you.
Chairman Campbell, thank you. And go ahead with the Capital Projects Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have no report at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Woodcock, Planning Commission.
We have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting will be next Tuesday.
Thank you, Alderman Woodcock. Dave Lamar, City Administrator report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just a few things on the horizon for us. As far as the departments, fire department getting a lot of calls. The EMS at the park is doing great. That works out really well. The new fire hall plans, RFPOs moving forward. Police department receiving the calls are down a little bit this week. Domestics are up. We're trying to pick up the new vehicles at Ford, the ones they ordered last year. Public Works, we already have heard about the trash issues. Limbs are good, grass bags and limbs are good. Codes, 50 to 60 inspections a day. Planning, many inquiries is what Keith Reed tells us about businesses moving here. Finance is working on year end. A lot of stuff going on there with finance. IT, they keep us moving, all these meetings and things like that. HR, as you can see. Parks, the events have been way up, and that's why the sales tax and the revenues have been way up. And so a lot of good things going on in our departments. One of the things I'd like while we're talking about this, if Keith, if you could give us an update on the political sign regulations and specifications, I would appreciate that, please.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Dave. I just wanted to give a brief update. We're entering the next round of political season with the November election. So with our, as you know, here in the city of Hendersonville, we have very strict sign ordinances, and we enforce those. We're very diligent and have been for several years on enforcing our sign ordinance. And one of the things we're going to do that's just a little bit different, what we have is we say that you can put signs out and people can have signs, and we have certain specifications on what they could be. And they can't be within 12 foot of the edge of the pavement. And that's in residential and commercial areas. One thing we're going to do a little bit different this year is typically in residential neighborhoods and commercial areas, if it's within 12 foot, then we have sign enforcement officers that patrol the city at different times and pull those signs. And historically, that's what we have done with election season. What we're going to do this year is we're going to continue to do that within our commercial areas. So if it's within 12 foot of the edge of the pavement, then it's going to be considered to be within the city right of way, and we'll be pulling those signs. One thing we're going to do a little bit different is in residential areas, because a lot of times in the residential areas, someone else is putting a sign in your yard, or you're putting it out there and you're just not familiar. So as an education campaign to assist residents, so we're not taking people's signs and then they come and look for them, and then they come and get them back from us at City Hall, and then put them back in there. What we're going to do is our sign enforcement officers, as a courtesy, if the signs are located within that 12-foot area and it's just those simple basic election signs that just stick in the ground, then our sign enforcement officers will gently pick those up and put them behind the 12-foot mark. And then there'll be a card, and it'll look like this right here. And it'll stick on the sign. It won't damage the sign. And then that way the resident will know that we've moved the sign back, and also informs them of the 12-foot requirement. So that's something that's going to be a little bit different. Also, we're notifying, I think we've already maybe notified most of the campaigns for the city elections that what our sign regulations are, and we'll be available to answer any questions to anybody running for office that's interested in what the details of that is going to be. And then I think it's September. September the 3rd is going to be third.
I'm running.
That's right. September the 3rd is going to be. Mr. Waters got his. But September the 3rd is going to be the date that you'll start seeing signs out. Now you'll see some people's signs if they already had run in a primary, like the presidential stuff and some state things. Then they're allowed to keep it up, keep their existing signs up if they won their primary. So that's one of the things, and it's a little bit different this year. Typically, in past years, until we changed the sign ordinance, political signs were only allowed out 45 days prior to the election. This year, because of the changes in the state law and the changes we made locally with our sign ordinance, they're allowed 60 days. So that's all that I had on that, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Free, I appreciate you giving us that information. Whoop, I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, I've lost
You can hear you, Dave. You're fine.
Okay, I lost my screen for a second. The only thing, I got two other things. One of the things, we had a USA, ASA national tournament this weekend. They raved about the park, the city, the hotels, the food, airport being close, and would like to come back. And I think I spoke with Director Gilly, and they would like to sign some kind of a long-term contract with us for several years. And I know that makes Barry Young at CBB happy, and the city happy with things. So I appreciate that going through. The only other thing is that I made mention when I asked that Chris and Greg be moved up, that Marshall has been an interim for a while, and that'll be on the agenda, on the BOMA agenda for next time. I did not send you notification early enough. Marshall and I got crossways in meeting before the meeting, but we're good to go on September the 8th, and I'll put that on the agenda for Marshall, because he's up to the director at that time. If you have any questions between now and the 8th, Dr. Marshall, myself, but I plan on doing that in 2 weeks. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or not.
Dave, thank you. Alderman Campbell, you have your hand up. Was it from before, or do you have a question for Dave?
It was from before. I'm sorry about that.
Appreciate that. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, thank you. 3 weeks ago, and I have a question for the CA and also for Keith Free. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from Freehold Communities. Freehold is the company that owns Durham Farms. As all of you know, Durham Farms is one of the premier new subdivisions, not only in our city, but in the state. In fact, Durham Farms is the fastest selling residential development in the state of Tennessee. So 3 weeks ago, I received a call and met with the owner of Durham Farms, one of the owners. He's from Boston, Massachusetts. And at that meeting, he informed me that the company was considering, and have already raised the money to do it, to put in 165 rental units. I call them apartments, but he referred to them as units. 165 rental units in Durham Farms. Of course, this was, in my view, against the original design of Durham Farms by this board. And I expressed unequivocally that I was opposed to that move. The citizens in the north end of Ward 6 and even the southern end of Ward 5 are up in arms. So it's my understanding that Mr. Lamar and Keith Free had met with them maybe multiple times. I don't know how many times. I don't know how many phone calls they've received, but I would like to get a report from the CA and from Mr. Free on their discussions with them, and just to also let the general committee know. At your next meeting, I intend to introduce a resolution expressing disappointment and asking the company to not move forward with the building of 165 rental units in Durham Farms. So with that, Mr. Lamar or Keith, whoever would like to address your conversations with them to share, because I do think it's important that the board be fully informed of something of this magnitude going on in the city. So, Mr. Lamar.
Yes, sir. I thought we discussed this yesterday, but I'll go ahead and address it. I mean, there's no problem. They came by and wanted to chat, the people from Durham Farms and Free shareholders, and we just told them until they make a decision on whether they're going to go rental, not rental, or what they're going to build, that we did not have any action to take on them. And I still feel that way. And so that's our stand. And Keith Free can elaborate on that too. We gave no intention of whether we liked the rentals, whether we disliked the rentals, whether we agreed or disagreed. The situation was such that until it becomes an issue with the city, then the city and staff are not going to get involved. They have not made a decision to this point. Am I correct, Mr. Robertson?
No, I think you're incorrect. In fact, Freehold met with a group of the steering committee from Durham, and everyone that attended that meeting with Freehold said that they were convinced that Freehold had made a decision to move forward. Now, Freehold is telling us that they haven't made a decision, but they've raised the money, and I don't know why but I believe personally they have made a decision to move forward. They're just trying to let this settle down a little because there is so much disagreement and so much confusion and disagreement with this move by the citizens. So I believe personally, regardless of what they're saying, they've made a decision. And but I understand that you have that impression from them.
Well, let me ask
and
you,
they haven't filed anything yet. I understand that, but I do believe that they have made a decision.
okay, well, in the meeting yesterday with you and I, Keith Reed, you stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they were going to make a decision in about 3 weeks what they were going to do, whether they were going to go rental or not. So that was the impression I got from you yesterday, that you stated that they had made a decision yet, and we haven't got notification. I don't know, Keith, have you got notification yet? One way?
No, I think everything is still as when Eddie has met with them, and then after that, then we had met with them to discuss it, and I think it's still the same information as far as what they're sharing, and what they shared with us was that they were intending on, and I guess maybe they did meet last week with some folks out in Durham Farms with the residents, that they were going to engage with the residents, get input, try to share with the residents what their thoughts were, and then after that, come up with a determination on what they were going to do, and then after that, that they would inform us as to what they were actually going to do. But at this point in time, based on what they're saying, that they have not made a determination. But what their end game is, or attempt is on this, we're not going to know that until they officially tell us. Now, when they officially tell us, then we will need to evaluate as a city, what our reaction to that, would be, to determine what, if anything, we can do in reaction to that.
Keith, is it your professional opinion that right now that we just stay in a holding pattern because the staff doesn't need to make any decisions since they have not told us yay or nay what they're going to do? Is that your professional opinion that we just need to sit tight until they make a decision?
I think that would be advisable to wait on our reaction to that, as far as from the planning staff's reaction, or the planning commission's reaction. But definitely, I think discussing this and getting the information out there, which I think it's already out in the neighborhood, and evidently they're already engaging with the residents of Durham Farm. So I think it's good that the information is out there in the discussion. And our hope would be that that through that discussion, that whatever their original intent was with the neighborhood to not have rental would be something that they would look to continue with, versus what they're looking at.
Right. Well, and Mr. Robinson and I, we agree that you, as a legislator, you're welcome to do resolutions and things like that you feel that necessary for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the city, and that's all. That's great. I don't disagree with that, but I hope you understand our position with the staff. We can't get in the middle of something that they haven't decided on yet. I know your personal opinion they've decided, but until they come to the city and tell the planning director that this is their option, they're going to accept it or decline it, that we just stay in neutral ground right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't want to get in a disagreement with you, Mr. Lamar, but in our meeting yesterday, I thought that you and Keith were going to bring this up and inform the board. And so that's why I felt compelled. I feel like this board needs to know, because if this is allowed to happen, and I believe the earlier that we can let Freehold know that we don't want this, that we are opposed to this, the better opportunity that they will make a decision if they haven't already. I believe they have, but if they haven't, that they will back down. I think the earlier the better. I don't think you wait until the dam breaks, but I think you put your thumb in as the dam is starting to leak. And so I'm going to bring legislation in a resolution, and all of y'all know what a resolution is. It just expresses the will of the board. And I think it's appropriate to let Freehold know at this point that this board does not agree with their decision to build 165 rental units in Durham Farms. So I'm not going to get into disagreement. I just wanted to let the board know this, because if this is allowed to happen in Durham, who knows what other new developments that it's going to happen in. So I think that we need to draw a line in the sand and oppose this at every opportunity we can. Durham has collected 90% of their homes have signed a petition that they are opposed to this rental section being built in Durham. So if we don't make a strong stand here, folks, it's coming to every ward in this city, or every new development, it's coming. So anyway, thank you for your time, Mayor. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, because I think you need to know what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Waters, do you have a question for our city administrator?
No, I was just going to follow up on my colleagues here about Durham Farms, if I may. I think Dave and Keith both have expressed made the right decisions for the city. I don't have a problem with that, but I have to agree with my colleague too, because he and I have attended these meetings with the people at Durham Farms and Autumn Creek and even some other locations. And like he said, we have met with Freehold, and I concur with my colleague. I have the same opinion that he does, but that's just my opinion. And I agree with David and Keith again. Maybe we should wait and let them make the first move before we do anything. But I hope by the statement that Alderman Robertson just made, that the city, maybe the legal department, would start looking at the original contract way back when this is brought up. See if there's anything in there that we can talk about. But that's just my opinion. And yes, he's right. It's bad. Those people over there are mad, and I really can't blame them. Thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Waters, thank you. Alderman Edwards, do you have a question for our city administrator?
Well, I just wanted to make one comment on a different note. Keith Free, Mr. Free, I appreciate you implementing a common sense approach to enforcing the sign ordinance. I know you and I had emailed back and forth. I think just removing the sign and taking it behind the dumpster. I remember campaigning 2 years ago, and that was the most frustrating thing. And so I think this is a good common sense approach, and I'd like to commend you for that. Thank you.
Alderman Edwards, thank you. Alderman Woodcock, do you have a question for our city administrator?
No, I want to jump on the conversation that Eddie brought up. Most people may not know this, but this is not the first developer to come in to one of our residential developments and turn it into a rental, or at least phases of it. So this is not something that's new. It's something that's already starting to happen. If we don't do something, every subdivision is going to be like that. Every ward is going to be like that. And so I would personally ask that staff at least help us and not wait until we just have a matter of a few days to act if the developers do present something. So I would hope that if aldermen, any other aldermen approach staff with needing assistance in stopping this, that they would offer their expertise and experience to try to prevent this from happening. Because if we wait too late, there's nothing we can do. I mean, like, I won't get my planning commission agenda until Friday, and I've got 4 days to prepare. So we can't just wait until they make the first move. We need to be proactive, unless staff is kind of saying that, you know, they maybe are okay with that type of a development. I'm not sure, but I would hope that if aldermen come to you for assistance, you would provide it.
Appreciate that. Next, we have second reading of ordinance 2020-25. This is an ordinance amending our budget ordinance 2020-20, accepting and appropriating expenditures and revenues awarded through the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. Alderman Brown.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second from Alderman Petrelli. Alderman Wilcox, thank you for your comments just a second ago. I apologize. I did not say that to you. Motion a second on ordinance, second reading ordinance 2020-25. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Carrie calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Browse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. That passed unanimously. Next, we have resolution 2020-47. This is a resolution to call for a public hearing on the proposed annexation of territory into the city of Hendersonville by owner consent and to approve a plan of services for the same property located on the west side of Anderson Road, the east side of Durham Farms, and the north side of Autumn Creek, also known as 1421 Anderson Road in Hendersonville, Sumner County, Tennessee. Alderman Woodcock.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. I do need to tell you all that we have the applicant that actually has to, that is the applicant for this as well as the next item on their agenda. He's got no obligation to speak, but if anybody feels like they have a question, would like to ask it, we do have that available to us. Alderman Bolt.
Alderman Woodcock, could you explain this just a little bit, what this actually means?
Yes, I'm happy to. Keith may have the finer details better, but I'll give you the layout. Let me get my note pulled up. I can't pull them up. I'll do it off memory. So Keith, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a 28-acre parcel. It's getting split into two zoning criteria. One is 1 acre lots, and the other one, I can't remember. Is it SR1 on the second half, Keith?
That's correct.
Yeah, I can't remember
the
number of lots.
And this property,
half of it would be, not half of it, but roughly would be.
yeah, a little bit, possibly about close to 2/3 of it would be zoned estates residential, which are 1 acre lots, and the remaining 10.7 acres is where the road will go through that would connect from Durham Farms all the way over to Anderson, where the neighborhood is right there next to that, Norman Way, and that would be SR1 zoning on that 10.7 acres. This property is currently located within the county, and they're requesting annexation. So this first thing is to adopt that we're going to have a public hearing at the next BOMA meeting for the plan of services. And then I think the next item after this is actually for the rezoning of that property.
Okay, thank you.
And also, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the actions we're taking tonight, it will actually reduce the number of allowable lots versus leaving it in the county, correct?
It would increase it, but on the ER property, on the county AR zoning, allows lots on 40,000 square foot pieces of property, and our ER zoning is a minimum of 1 acre. So within that 2/3 of it, it actually is down zoning it, and then the SR1 where the road's going to go through, then that would allow for 12,500 square foot lots that are similar to the adjacent residential area. Actually, the lots are a little bit larger than the average of the residential developments around there.
Alderman Bolt, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I've got nobody else in the queue, and I don't see anybody waving their hands wildly to get my attention. All those in favor of resolution 2020-47, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore, Skidmore,
I already said aye 15 times. Didn't you hear me?
nope, didn't hear you.
I
Robertson,
know, I'm just teasing. Oh my God.
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Boat,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. That passes unanimously. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2020-26. This is an ordinance rezoning 28.9 acres located on the west side of Anderson Road, the east side of Durham Farms, and the north side of Autumn Creek, also known as 1421 Anderson Road in Hendersonville, Sumner County, Tennessee. Alderman Woodcock.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Woodcock, a second from Alderman Waters. Keith, help me out. You sort of alluded to this a second ago. The overall number of homes allowed on these two zoning designations will actually decrease. Is that correct?
Overall, it'll increase just slightly.
Increase slightly, okay. The road will be added, I guess. I should have mentioned that
Yes,
too.
yeah,
Okay.
the road would be constructed, and that roadway is a east-west collector road that's on our long-term transportation plan that will eventually connect New Shackle Island Road all the way over to Saundersville
I
Road.
appreciate that. Alderman Bolt.
Keith, was this part of the kind of the original plan?
For Durham Farms?
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't the Durham Farm developers. This is a different developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alderman Bolt, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Keith, is this the beginning of this road that we talked about it about a year ago? It's going to wind up on Saundersville Road. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, this is the part of the road that's on sort of the Durham Farm side of Anderson. What happens is you've got Durham Farms, then you'd have this property, then you'd have Anderson, and then you go through on Norman Way, you're in the Norman Creek subdivision, and then you go through the very back half of Fountain Brook.
Right.
And remember that property we annexed and rezoned about 6 months ago? I think the Baird Farm.
Baird Farm.
Yeah, then the road goes through there, then it connects into the neighborhood, that Forest Park.
Forest Park, yeah.
Then it hits Saundersville Road. So
I couldn't think of Forest Park. Yeah.
That's the way that that connects eventually.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that, Alderman Waters. All those in favor of first reading of ordinance 2020-26, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Boat,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Yes.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Yes.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Okay, I need to abstain. I appreciate that.
So that's 12 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. That passes a 12-0 to 1. Who wants to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman Sprouse makes a motion to adjourn. Alderman Waters second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Boat. Boat.
You're muted.
He's already gone.
You're muted.
Aye.
Brown,
Aye. Okay.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodchuck,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. Y'all have a good night. We're adjourned. Thank you,
Good night.
Tina.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Peace.
Thank you, Tina. Have a good night.